Welcome to the June 4th, 2017 Guitar Blog episode on lead guitar performance, dual guitar harmonies. Now, guitar harmonies are one of the best sounds when we need to beef up a guitar part and have it function with a little bit more presence. The intervals normally used when it comes to create two guitar harmonies will find the guitar parts being doubled with intervals of the major and minor thirds as well as the major and minor sixes, and with harmonies that apply the perfect fourth and the perfect fifth intervals as well. So in this lesson, we're going to examine all these intervals and exercises that'll demonstrate the sound that we can produce when we're using two guitar parts played in harmony. So let's get things started here in part one of the lesson with a look at the use of major and minor thirds and the perfect fifth interval. Well, in example one, I've got this nice dual guitar part here of major and minor thirds. And you got to remember, major and minor thirds make up one of the most common and, in my opinion, one of the best sounding dual guitar harmonies out there. You're going to find this harmony of thirds applied in all kinds of music, and it really beefs up and jazzes up and spices up the effect of a melody line. Now, in example 1A, I have a two-measure key of B minor melody that's performed in the 7th position. Learn this melody first and then record it, or play it into a looper pedal like I did, and then you can work out the part from example 1B to play over this as a second example part for over top of example 1A. So let's run through example 1A, give you a good idea how it's all set up. We're starting off here on the 9th fret of the 4th string, so it's a B minor piece. The chord changes, by the way, in the background are just B minor and then a G into an A. Very simple progression in the background there. So we're starting on the B on 9th fret, 4th string, and we're going to pedal off of the minor third of that root note, which is going to be this D tone here on the 7th fret of the 3rd string. Then we're going to jump over across to a high G, 8th fret, 2nd string. Then we'll have an F sharp on the 7th fret of 2nd string. And then we'll have a slide that moves forward on the 3rd string, 9th fret to 11th fret. And then we're going to just walk down here, 10th fret, sliding to 8, into the 7th. And then we're going to walk down on 3rd string, going 9, 7, 6. And then we're going to have this A tone, and I'm resolving it on the handout on example 1A. It's not showing it resolving, but in the melody lines I am resolving it. So altogether, that example 1A idea sounds like this. All right, now in example 1B, I'm putting together a thirds idea on top of this. So every note that we did have from the first melody is going to be played out a third in the diatonic scale of B minor. You can kind of hear that. The resolutions and everything. It's strong with the thirds, and it really ties it in nicely. Like I was saying, it's probably one of my favorite ways of doing a guitar harmony. But what you want to do is take the handout, go through example 1B, and notice the distances off of every one of the notes back in example 1A. So the first note in example 1A is a B. So then the first note in example 1B happens to be a D tone. So there's your minor third. Then the next note is a D in example 1A, but then when we travel over to example 1B, now we have an F sharp. So now we have a major third going across those notes, and so on and so forth. You're going to see it all kind of, pedaling back and forth with the different kinds of thirds there. Whether they're going to be major thirds or minor thirds will depend on the key center. When you break down a harmony, and if I start at the low end of the neck here off B minor, you can hear and you can see the shapes are changing as we're doing those thirds harmonies along the neck. Because when you're diatonic, you're going to have that happen within the key. You're going to have a series of major thirds and minor thirds. Major third, minor third, minor third, major third, major third, minor third, minor third. So, study it and understand how everything's operating along the neck, because it's very valuable to know the music theory behind how it all works. In a band, a lot of times there is always that one good person or, a couple of people who are the better musicians, and, oftentimes they're going to be the ones helping everybody else along to be able to form the parts and get everything operating perfectly. So keep that in mind, because it would be nice if you were the smarter musician in your band and you knew how to explain all these ideas to the other bandmates. It can make it a little bit easier. So anyway, that wraps up example number 1. We're going to take a short break here, come back in a moment with example number 2, where we're going to take a look at some of these dual guitar parts harmonized with perfect fifth intervals. Just want to let you know some new courses that are going to be coming up in the members area over at creativeguitarstudio.com in the month of June 2017. Upon their release, I'll be retiring 2 elective lesson plans to make way for the new courses. The ones going into retirement are going to be the Masterclass series and the Guitar Blog series. They've had a great run, and between them there's 50 episodes in the members area. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be there for you. If you've got a basic membership month to month, or if you've got the premium annual membership, you're going to be able to access all those video lessons and all the handouts and jam tracks and everything for them. And in the next few weeks, the new courses getting released. They're going to be a new one on guitar soloing. I've had a lot of people asking me about doing solos in a course centered towards that. So that's going to start on June 9th, and I'll be running another one I've got a lot of requests for. It's going to be a course on acoustic guitar. That's one's going to be starting up on June 18th. Now, I think that you're really going to enjoy these new guitar lessons, and they're going to be a nice complement to the other electives that I've got, and to the core curriculum, of course, on the website, which everyone has a lot of fun working through. So thanks for supporting what I do, and I look forward to catching up with you real soon in the members area at creativeguitarstudio.com. Well, in example 2, I'm going through a nice dual guitar part here with the perfect fifth interval. Really nice sound. It's a great way to get an interesting color. It's a very different color, than compared to the major and minor thirds that we just did. But, in this example, it's really quite an interesting overlay that we have, because there's also the effect of the strong sound of the diminished that shows up. Now, I should, kind of explain something here. Because we're dealing with fifth intervals, for the most part, if you took a scale and you just started riffing out on the scale is going to primarily be just perfect fifths. Except, though, when we're on the 7th degree, we're going to have a diminished. All perfect fifths all the way along, but when you get to that 7th degree, it's kind of a little bit outside sound. So you realize that about the fifth, you're going to be working with a diminished in there. Now, our riff that we have in example 2, it's just based in the key of G major, and the riff is just moving from a G chord, and then it goes to a D chord. So it's just, it's kind of like a root chord to a fifth chord of the key center, and, it's pretty straightforward. But, back in our first example, when we were working through major and minor thirds, and we were able to track the flow just in a diatonic way across the key, and all the principles for the effect of the thirds, it stayed, smooth and connected. But when you're dealing with the fifth, you have to kind of watch out for that diminished interval. Now, in the key of G major, we have to watch off of the F sharp. So anytime we hit an F sharp, we have that possibility there of that diminished idea. So in the line, let's go through the line now. In example 2A, where we have sort of the foundational, bass part, we're going really a pentatonic type of run. Really simple, kind of almost like country western sounding melody or something. But we're moving on the 4th string to get started with their G, A, and B. Then we have this D note that comes up here, back to the B. A going back to the G chord, then we have, or the G tone, sorry, and then we're going E to F sharp. Now at that point, of course, you're going to have to remember that's where we're going to have our outside tone of the diminished happen. We're going to move over to an A and then come back down, from F sharp to E and then into the D tone to wrap up at the root of the chord of the moment, which happens to be the D chord. So, it's kind of an interesting way that we harmonize. When you look at example 2B, what's happening there for the most part is we're just tracking against, a fifth. We're moving along, we're grabbing that 7 to 9 to 11 on the 3rd string. So we're getting D and E and F sharp. We're going to move up to an A because we have in the previous melody, the example 2A melody, we have that 7th fret, D note that shows up. So it's 5th against D is A. Then we drop down, we got an 11th fret, a 9th fret going to a 7th fret. And that's just tracking, what we had going on before off the 4th string. And then, at that point, we have to watch because we're coming along here to target out some ideas that happen off that F sharp now. So what's going to happen is on that second measure when we're covering the D chord and we have to deal with that F sharp in the bass there on the 9th fret of the 5th string, we're going to go out a semitone there, come along to a C tone. That's going to be our note for our diminished. And that's covering this part. So, what you got to do is analyze this stuff. I mean, it's one thing to say, I'm going to make up some kind of a part here that's harmonized or whatever, find some intervals and just kind of putter around with it and do the hunt and peck method. That's one way to approach it, but if you know your theory and you know what you're supposed to be looking for and you know how you want to make the combinations happen, you can play around with things a little bit. I mean, you can also, you don't have to go with that diminished interval there. You could go outside, play that, that note that's a C sharp instead of a C natural. It's going to take you a little bit outside of the key center, but the note will be kind of interesting. It'll be a major 7th against the chord that's going on at the moment. So instead of the proper, triad, it's going to be giving you this color. So it's kind of an interesting sound. So you can go non-diatonic. I know that a lot of times when people begin, learning theory, they start thinking in the confines of theory a lot. But you have to realize that, music's an art form. There's no such thing as always or never or whatever. And you can do whatever you want. But there's explanations of why things are happening, not whether they're good or not. It's just you're going to be the decision maker of that. You're going to decide whether you do something and it's cool and you like it. Or you're going to say, I don't like it. You might listen to this diminished idea that that I put into the example and say, you know what, that sounds kind of not so great. I don't like it. And you could do something else. So remember that it's good to know. It's almost like that old saying. It's good to know the rules so that you can break them. So keep that in mind because it's really valuable to understand all this stuff as you move along through the material that I have on the site. Now, speaking of which, that does bring us to the end of this part 1 segment of the video lesson. And as we move forward, I want to cover some stuff in part 2 where we're going to move into the major and minor 6s. And then we're going to also take a look at what's happening with perfect 4th intervals. And if you know your theory, again, I'm always saying that this video, but if you know your theory, a 6 is an inversion of a 3rd and the 4th is an inversion of a 5th. So it's kind of like we're along the same lines a little bit with the things we have been doing in part 1 of the lesson, but we're going to expand upon things a little bit further. And I hope you're a member of the website. It doesn't really cost all that much to join up. If you have questions about the site or anything, send me an email. A lot of times what I'm finding is people who are signing up for Skype classes with me, because I do a lot of Skype lessons now. I can't actually believe in the last 6 months how that's expanded. I never used to do that many Skype classes, but since we launched the members area, I got a lot more of that going on. I load up people with my Skype classes, so if you take a Skype class with me, you're going to get a lot of stuff and you're really going to get a good eye-opening onto whatever topics are causing you problems. But aside from all that, I'm going to wrap this portion up now for the YouTube students, and I want to say thanks for watching, and I hope that I'll see you next in the members area over at creativeguitarstudio.com. Improvising a rock lead is a must-have skill for every guitarist. This lesson plan shows how to combine 7-tone scales, arpeggios, and pentatonics to create more interesting rock solos. The focus throughout the lesson plan is placed upon using embellishments like slides, vibrato, bends, hammer-ons, and pull-offs. As a bonus, a complete rock song is included for jamming over at home. Rock lead soloing is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com. Thanks for watching part 1 of the lesson. Be sure to sign up for a membership at creativeguitarstudio.com to watch part 2. In part 2, we'll study the major and minor 6th interval and the perfect 4th interval. Plus, as a member, you'll also be able to download the handout for this lesson and watch many more professional guitar lessons on the site. So I'll catch up with you next at creativeguitarstudio.com.